and welcome to this week's episode of TV POV. I'm Jen.
And I'm Melissa.
Thanks so much to everyone who's been checking out the episodes, going to the website at watchtvpov.com and checking out some of our segments as well. It looked for a little while like we might actually have a slow news week this week, but as usual, things just kind of exploded this time at the last minute. This time of year, there's always more and more full season pickups for new shows, and CBS actually picked up 4, which is pretty unusual. They usually drop the axe a little earlier on something, but they picked up 2 of their crime procedurals, Scorpion and Stalker. Oh, and NCIS New Orleans, of course, which I almost assumed was already getting a full season because it has NCIS in the title. And they picked up Madam Secretary. Which is really good news because I actually quite like that. It's a fun political drama, and I think Taya Leone's really great in that.
I'm really enjoying Madam Secretary. It's my surprise of the season, I think.
Oh yeah.
She's fantastic in it. The entire cast is really good, and it kind of has that Good Wife vibe to it, with a little bit of like 24 thrown in once in a while. So I think that's what's really keeping me.
Yeah, I was gonna say Good Wife mixed with a little West Wing. Like, it doesn't have the same pace as the West Wing, but the kind of politics they're dealing with, because she's the Secretary of State, a lot of it reminds me of the international issues that they were dealing with on that show, which we haven't seen in a while. So that's kind of cool. I actually kind of don't mind Scorpion and Stalker as far as procedural dramas go. I kind of put them on in the background when I'm at the gym or cleaning my room, and both of those are kind of cool. So I'm happy to see them get full season pickups. And I didn't watch NCIS New Orleans.
I have not watched any NCIS at any time whatsoever.
Well, I refuse to watch anything that has CSNI in the title in any order. So I'm not gonna give that one a go. We got another full season pickup from NBC. They have picked up the hour-long dramedy Mysteries of Laura.
Really?
Yes. Which I thought was awful, just awful. To anyone who hasn't seen it, first of all, don't bother. But it's sort of a cop show about Deborah Messing's character, who's a cop, but oh my God, she's a cop and a mother at the same time. It's impossible. How will she do it? What really bugged me about this show is, if you'll remember, during the promotion for the show, they were talking as if they invented the idea of the dramedy, which is the dumbest thing.
Yeah.
Right? And it's...
Yeah.
So I was kind of already prepared to hate it, and then I did.
I didn't even get through the first episode. I was so bored.
Me either. Yeah. I didn't care what happened.
Maybe 10 minutes?
I like kind of went for half an hour, but I couldn't tell you what happened during the half an hour.
Yeah, it just annoyed me too much. And for every full season that gets picked up somewhere, a show eventually has to get canceled.
Yes.
The first cancellation of this TV season has happened, and it's ABC's Manhattan Love Story.
Yes.
Which is a show I haven't watched.
You know what? It's one of the only ones I haven't watched either. So I guess, don't really have a strong opinion on it. I have heard some people say they quite enjoyed it. A lot of people said they were ambivalent. I haven't really heard like a lot of hate, like a lot of like severe hate. So maybe the problem with the show is that it just didn't inspire people one way or the other.
Yeah.
Which is almost worse than being hated.
Yeah.
So some cool pickups for new stuff and development. We got Ben Affleck and Matt Damon working together again, which we just talked about a couple of weeks ago. They were doing another project.
Yeah, with sci-fi.
Yeah, so they're doing lots of different things, and they are working with Fox on a comedy about a woman who works at a frozen yogurt shop who discovers that she can move things with her mind.
Ooh.
That she's telekinetic. Now, the first thing, obviously, that came to my mind was That's Very Wonderfalls.
Which I have never seen.
Never seen Wonderfalls?
No.
Well, that was about a woman who could hear like weird things talking, like if that computer started talking to you, or my Coke can or something like that. Although I don't know if they had to have faces. I don't know. But this kind of reminds me of that, which was also at Fox, and unfortunately didn't do very well. But it's with Ben Affleck and Matt Damon behind it. And it should be pretty cool.
But they've also teamed up with one of the 30 Rock writers for this one.
Oh yeah, right.
So I can't recall her name right now, but it was someone who was a writer for all of the seasons on 30 Rock.
So that's some great pedigree,
Yeah.
for sure.
A British crime drama called Wire in the Blood is being adapted for ABC. Another case of the Brit crime dramas being brought across and Americanized.
Yeah.
This one is based on characters created by a Scottish novelist that I've never heard of before named Val McDermid. I don't read a lot of crime dramas.
No.
I mean, I read some of the mystery stuff like the Kathy Reich stuff and stuff like that, but I've never heard of this writer.
Yeah.
It follows a character named Elizabeth Chase, who's a police detective who recruits a doctor, an unconventional clinical psychologist who has a talent for catching killers before they can strike again.
That's interesting.
So I think this one has a lot of promise, depending how dark they can go with it.
Yeah.
And on ABC with the whole, kind of a lot of Disneyfying, superheroing.
Literally
on there.
Disneyfying, if you want to talk about
Yeah. So something like this I'm not sure of, but it's promising. And who knows, ABC may be the studio to do it, but may not be the network to actually air it.
Yeah, well, what I like about it is even if they don't go very dark, first of all, procedurals aren't going anywhere. They work so well for audiences, and it's really hard to come up with a new way of formatting them. We've seen crimes before they happened before, but usually it was mystical. Whether it was dead people saying, "Save me" on True Calling, or our friend Kyle Chandler reading tomorrow's newspaper today on Early Edition. But this is the first time that I think they're trying to use more of a realistic clinical approach to predict crimes before they happen.
The big twist with this show, which I find fascinating, is that they're going to analyze both the victim and the killer so that the audience empathizes with both sides.
Which is good.
Both sides are going to get equal play, which I think is pretty uncommon when it comes to the crime dramas. It's usually, we're the good guys, there's a bad guy, I'm the bad guy, good guys win.
Big news for fans of horror and people who were teenagers in the 90s. Was a teenager in the 90s, not a big fan of horror, but if you were both, you're gonna love the fact that MTV has officially ordered Scream, the TV adaptation of Scream, to a series, coming in 2015. So we heard it was in development, and now it's officially gonna be coming to our screens.
Yeah.
The one interesting thing that I heard, and I don't know if this is true or not, was a rumor going around, people talking about it on the internet in the last couple of weeks, that the iconic ghost face might not actually be in the series, which is weird because that seems like the whole point of Scream.
Yeah.
I mean, they could just be going for doing a kind of generic horror series that has the same style of Scream, meaning that it parodies the genre of horror, but has a different killer. Maybe they don't want to use that guy because he is so iconic, and maybe they figure it'll come across goofy. I mean, it has actually become a parody of itself.
Yes.
So that might be a thing. Although it's just kind of hard to picture Scream without that face. That's
same here. What I'm excited about is that one of the stars of the show is Bex Taylor Klaus, who we first got to know on The Killing,
right?
Who has had a recurring role on Arrow as Sin.
Yes.
And she also had a fascinating arc last season on House of Lies on Showtime.
Yeah.
So she's super, super talented. And to see her as a series regular, instead of just, having a really impactful guest starring role, I think that'll be a nice change. And MTV's been doing some great TV, so I'm excited to see how this all shapes up.
Yeah, I love that actress as well, especially on The Killing. She just blew me away in that role. She's such an interesting look, and she's different than a lot of the young girls you kind of see out there, the image that she's putting forth, so I really like that. Another new thing in development, this time at Fox, is a Peter Pan drama, which I'm actually really excited about. When I read the description, I thought, well, that's the most interesting way to use the Peter Pan legend that I've ever heard. It's called The League of Pan. It's being developed by Andrew Miller, who was the executive producer of the CW's Secret Circle, which isn't great pedigree as far as I'm concerned because that series was really boring.
Yeah.
I thought so anyway. But I love the idea for this. It takes place 15 years after the story of Peter Pan, and the Lost Boys have all left Neverland. But but someone is trying to track them down and kill them one by one. So they have to come together to figure out who this is. And I'm sure it's going to be related to their time in Neverland, otherwise it wouldn't be related to this at all. And that just struck me as somewhat ingenious as a concept.
That is kind of interesting. I'm not really a Peter Pan fan to start, so any of these shows that, I mean, like they're doing the Peter Pan live on NBC, and then Peter Pan has been a part of Once Upon a Time. That's just never a story that I've connected with. But this sounds kind of intriguing, and also taking, you know, kind of this children's story and twisting it in a dark way, kind of like when we talked about Archie last week.
Yeah.
Riverdale, you know, kind of being a Twin Peaks version of Riverdale, that there's, you know, this darkness simmering underneath. So I like that.
Well,
that potential.
On Once Upon a Time, Peter Pan was actually a villain stealing children, so they did go dark with that, but it was bad. It was the wrong way to go dark. It was a terrible series arc, pretty much as most things on Once Upon a Time have been since season 1. Another thing that I like about it is it's obvious that in our society now, it's hard to think of original ideas, and not just that it's hard to think of them, but it's hard to sell them. So I like when someone says, okay, we have to connect this to some type of popular property in order to sell it, but we're gonna do it in a unique way. So yeah, we're gonna have to attach Peter Pan to it, but we're gonna totally twist it. And I think initially, Once Upon a Time had the right idea when they started with it, and then they just started basically putting people in Disney costumes and having them run around set.
Yeah.
So this is a good way to use an established property in an inventive way.
Yeah. The good news is that there are still some shows out there that are completely original and like nothing I have ever heard of before in my life. This project that I heard about earlier today, I am so fascinated by. There's a novel called Horror Store, which is a book that's designed in the format of a furniture catalog, like an IKEA catalog, and it's a haunted house story set in this store. And the fictional store is called Orsk. And it's a Swedish style big box store.
Wow.
And every morning when the employees arrive, there's broken furniture, things knocked over, vandalism. So there's either someone or something that's up to no good in the store.
Yeah.
So what they do to try and figure out what's going on, 5 employees agree to spend the night in the store, a dusk till dawn shift. And they are unaware of the darkness that awaits them. I am so fascinated by this. IKEA stores have always been a bit creepy to me. I don't know why. And then it was just reinforced with, we're nearing Halloween, and there was an IKEA ad from, I think it was Thailand, where they reenacted parts of The Shining in an IKEA store, which I thought was the perfect pairing.
It is perfect, but way to not make me want to shop in your store. The good news is that if there are killers chasing them around the store, hopefully there's those helpful arrows on the bottom that tell them.
I think this has so much potential. I don't think there's any news on potential networks or anything.
Yeah.
It's just a book that's being adapted for a potential TV series.
It is. It really makes me want to read the book. What I like is that in the press release, when they were talking about all of the doors, the wardrobes being kicked in and windows shattering, they were giving them all specific names.
Yes.
So, like, I don't remember what they are, but they were Swedish names. So it was like the mom dresser was, you know, but that's an IKEA name. It's definitely not that.
It was Caring Bookshelves and Glan's Glassware. And Vandalized Lyripip Wardrobe.
Yeah, see, yeah. That kind of attention to detail.
This is a brilliant concept.
Another thing being developed, this is another kind of, it's a movie to TV, but it's also a comic to TV type thing, because this has been done in several iterations. Netflix is adapting a live action Richie Rich television series. My only association with Richie, well, actually I have 2 associations with Richie Rich. I think there was a cartoon that I remember as a child, and then also, of course, Macaulay Culkin.
Yes.
The team behind Richie Rich are responsible for a lot of Disney Channel stuff, and then they've also got one of the creators of Smallville in there. It's not really clear, to me anyway, whether it's a kid's series or not, because when you say Disney Channel, That's what I think. They're calling it a comedy, but of course, a lot of those Disney Channel shows are comedies.
Yeah.
I mean, your iCarlys and your Hannah Montanas, I don't know. That's how I would see this. And especially with a child star, which obviously it is. The kid playing Richie Rich is Dark Skies actor Jake Brennan. And the one photo that I did see, it did look a little bit like that.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if this is going to be the first, because there are a lot of those Disney Channel shows available on Netflix. So this is their first original foray into that, maybe.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Which is brilliant, because there's the whole kids section.
Oh, and you definitely want to jump on board.
There are so many kids that are utilizing Netflix right now.
That's a market you want to be in.
One final project that's kind of got me intrigued. Mark Harmon, who you'll know from movies and television and so many different things. One of the NCISs, I believe. He's a star of.
Yes, the original NCIS.
Yes. He is developing a young William Shakespeare drama for the CW, which right now I believe they're calling it Shakespeare's Sisters. And it's a tale of black magic, romance, and revenge. It's got a young Will Shakespeare who is clashing with three witches. Double toilet trouble, anyone? I'm a huge Macbeth fan.
Yeah.
And also butting heads with the most powerful woman in the world at the time, Queen Elizabeth.
Right.
So they're saying that the project has the grit of Game of Thrones, but the wit and heart of Shakespeare in love, which is kind of an odd pairing.
That's a really odd pairing.
Yeah.
They're exploring the fictional real life of William Shakespeare.
Yes.
I like that they're bringing witches into it because it's sort of like talking about all the different things that might have influenced him, and clearly witches were something that appeared in his works. So.
What I also think is kind of neat with this, and what CW has done with Reign, which has been a fantastic series, which is, kind of a revisionist history, kind of a historical drama, but it does have a supernatural element to it.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm really, really intrigued of it. They may not have picked the most perfect description out of the gate, but I'm optimistic, and I'm looking forward to perhaps checking this out.
So now on to our favorite casting news of the week. Mine is a weird one because there were all these rumors going around before they announced Colin Farrell and Vince Vaughn as the stars of True Detective that one of my favorite hotties, Taylor Kitsch, was going to be one of the two. Now, he wasn't one of the people that they originally announced, but it turns out he is actually going to be in the series. And he has confirmed that he'll be in True Detective Season 2. And I wish I had more to tell you about that, but that is basically all we know.
And it's basically just based on an interview that he did where he confirmed he's in it, but HBO's made no announcement, and we have no clue who he's playing.
I'm really excited because I think he's such an uber talented guy besides being hot. I mean, I jest, he is very hot, but he's also really talented. And I'm really excited to see how he expands into more character-driven roles. And so I was so disappointed when he wasn't going to be in True Detective.
Yeah.
So now to think that maybe it's not one of the leads, but hopefully it's a really juicy role that he can sink his teeth into.
And it brings him back to HBO. Did you see The Normal Heart?
No, he's
fantastic in it. Unbelievable in it. My pick for this week, and again, I'm going with something that's superhero because I love it.
Yeah.
But because it's an actress that I've liked since she first made an appearance on The Vampire Diaries in the first season, which is Melise Zhao. She played Anna, who was a vampire on The Vampire Diaries. Fan favorite, much loved. She's done some other shows that have been canceled since, but she's joining The Flash as a character named Linda Park. She's a reporter for the newspaper in Central City, who's going to be working with Iris and then meets Barry. And there are some sparks, apparently.
Nice.
She comes into play in the 12th episode of this season, so not too far off.
We've got some exciting series to talk about this week. 2 debuts, actually.
Yes.
One network kind of superhero comic booky type show.
Yeah.
And one basic cable comedy. The first one is NBC's Constantine.
Yes.
So you had seen it previously, and I know
I
you had
had.
put it in your top 3, I believe, new shows of the season. So now that it's airing, and you've seen, I guess you've watched it again, probably when it debuted. Are you still in love with it?
I am still really enjoying it, which is kind of crazy because it borders on what I can tolerate, like creepiness levels that I can tolerate.
That is so funny because I was just going to ask you that, because when I watched it, and I watched it for the first time to prepare for this show, and I watched it going, why does Melissa love this? She told me she hated demonic possession.
I do.
And I'm like, that's what the show is all about. This is a demonic possession show.
This really is like on the borderline of demon-y for me. I typically do not watch stuff like this.
Yeah.
But there's just something that's kind of intriguing about John Constantine as a character. He's very punk rock. He's very kind of, he's a dabbler in the dark arts type person. He's not necessarily a superhero per se, although he kind of is. Any powers he has are because of these incantations. His origin is really, really fascinating, and they touch on it a bit in the pilot, is that when he was born, his mother died. So his father had this this grudge against him his entire life and called him killer. So that sparked him looking into, you know, the occult and everything, trying to find ways to connect with his mother to, you know, see if it really was his fault or something. And he ends up opening up a shitstorm of a hellmouth of evil. There's a whole storyline for anyone who's read the comics with the Newcastle Five, and we see the little girl that gets sucked into hell, Astra. There's a whole storyline with that I find riveting. So because of the origin of it all and where it looks like it's going, like there's kind of all of these different tasks that he has to achieve, I think that's why I'm willing to overlook the creepier aspects, because he's such a fascinating character. The one thing that I wasn't too crazy about in the pilot was the character Liv, who, I mean, when this show was originally conceived, she's not from the comic books. They had set up this character to kind of give the viewer the human point of view, someone outside of this whole world, for us to, kind of relate to. And they made it that she was the child of one of John Constantine's former compatriots that doesn't know anything about her dad and everything, and gets sucked into this world. As they were developing the show, they realized that this dynamic wasn't working. So they decided to cut that character out. And they went to NBC and said, listen, this isn't really working. Will you give us permission to change the direction a bit? And then they took a character from the actual comics named Zed and have incorporated her, and we see a little bit of her at the very end of the pilot.
Right. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I liked, like you said, the backstory about him having started this whole journey with supernatural to search for the spirit of his mother. That provides something very interesting to come up in the future, hopefully. But also, as you mentioned, you come into the story after one of these major events in his life in which this little girl that he was trying to help, he actually inadvertently got her sucked into hell and is sort of paying penance for that. Obviously, we haven't heard the last of that either. So there's a couple of other things in his distant past and recent past which are going to have a big impact, I assume, on the story. That's really well set up. But I'm still surprised that you could handle it, because I thought it was so, like, just the way it was stylized, the way the possessions are stylized, much scarier than anything on Supernatural. The thing about Supernatural is that it was bloodier. Supernatural was bloodier than Constantine. Constantine was more like a horror film. Like, in Supernatural, there were lots of times I was like, oh, gross, innards. But in this show, it was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to sleep with the lights off tonight, because,
The other characters that were introduced in the pilot, I'm intrigued to learn more about them. Like Manny, the guardian angel.
Harold Parnew's character, I didn't like him. I like the idea of his character, and in general, I do like Harold Parnew, but I didn't like the way they styled him. I thought the way he chose to play the role was very jilted and kind of irritating, like those yellow eyes. And that might be something in the comic, but I found it I didn't find him relatable, and I found it very stiff. So hopefully they do something with that character, because it felt really off to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm intrigued to see, because we don't know much about him.
It's true.
So to learn more about that, and maybe there's a reason that he is that way.
Yeah.
He's the guardian angel to someone who's been damned to hell. Like,
yeah, I love that idea.
There's gotta be some darkness there.
Choice as to how he chose to play the role for me, but we'll see. I mean, he can always adjust that and change.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't wait to meet Zed in the next episode. Like, see more than just her drawing, because the actress that's playing her, Angelica Celaya and Angelica, as she introduced herself at press roundtables, Angie, she is a force to be reckoned with. Yeah. So I am excited to see the way the two of them butt heads.
Nice.
Like, I think it's going to be like this really awesome chemistry. Also, Chaz is a fascinating character. Like, what's his deal? He's dead. He's not dead. Like,
right.
What?
He's some type, and he was killed in the episode, and yet he wasn't killed. And they kind of just brushed over that, which I liked, because it was kind of like, oh, it's weird, whatever. And well, I'm sure we'll find out, but
I think it's around between episodes 10 and 12 that's supposed to happen.
Okay. Well, so, it's a good character and an interesting dynamic to explore.
He's also, if anyone has read the books, which is a really awesome aspect, he's kind of the person that keeps John Constantine in check and accountable for his actions. You know, with the whole thing with that map, he's like, Liv drew out this roadmap for us. We have to act on it. He's the one who keeps them, you know, kind of motivated and on track. I'm really excited to see more of that as well. And hopefully it doesn't get any creepier, like the demons don't get any creepier, because I may have to watch those parts like this.
Oh, I would expect it to get much creepier. We'll have to see. I mean, this show might be a little too creepy for me in the long run. I suppose it depends. It's not a show I would want to watch by myself, which I did, luckily, in the middle of the day. But I think I would probably need a snuggle partner just to feel safe if I was watching it before bed.
There was another premiere this week, which is a comedy on USA Network in the States, and is airing on Comedy Network in Canada. It's called Benched, and it's a legal comedy starring Eliza Coupe, who is amazing. What did you think of this one?
Well, first of all, I thought the premise was kind of cool. So Eliza Coupe's character was a high-end corporate lawyer who is clearly one of those type A, like, obsessive workaholic personalities, who kind of takes that a little bit into her personal life as well, in the sense that when things don't work out, she kind of implodes. So we find her in the beginning of the pilot on the phone with her ex-fiance, who 3 months later after their breakup is engaged to someone else, which would suck for anyone. She's coming apart at the seams, and at the same time, she shows up for a meeting where she expects it to be announced as one of the new partners of the firm she works for, and it's not her. It's another woman who works less hard but has much better boobs than her. So she freaks out, breaks a bunch of stuff, including a vase that was given to the head of the firm by Elton John, which is actually kind of a funny joke, because throughout the episode, she becomes kind of infamous in the law community for this incident, but throughout the episode, it's one of those games of telephone where the incident with the vase has been blown out of proportion. So people are like, hey, you're the lady that broke a vase over Elton John's head. And then it becomes, you're the lady that broke a lamp in George Michael's face. So like, you're the lady that smacked Michael Bolton with like a bedpost or something. So it's always a different pop star and a different object. And she's like, it's Elton John, he wasn't even there. But after this implosion at her high-end law firm, she ends up going to the public defender's office, where she is woefully out of place.
Yes.
I think I enjoyed this comedy, but I think it's safe to say that, you know, at least 80% of what makes this show work is just Eliza Coupe. Without her, it would just be a really kind of, you know, generic, you know, mediocre show. She is so good that she elevates it to another level of comedy. Yeah. Her characteristics, her handling of comic timing, her physicality. I mean, she's brilliant. She was brilliant in everything I've seen her in so far, and
even that terrible Scrubs reboot.
Well, but remember she was also in the 8th season of Scrubs as one of the interns as well. And so she was one of the only people that got carried into what I like to call Scrubs the New Class. Some people call it Scrubs season 9. I don't think that counts. So she was great as with JD as one of those interns, and she was so good on Happy Endings. Her presence alone, I think, makes it worth watching.
Yeah, I also thought one of the side characters was kind of funny. That's played by Maria Bamford, who some people know from the Netflix season of Arrested Development. She was Debris that Tobias hooks up with. That's the actress.
Which one is this? Which character was that?
The blonde
in the,
girl
in
from
the pantsuit?
Yes.
Did not like her.
I thought she was hysterical, but I've liked a lot of different things she's in. Plus her voice acting. She's done so many great voice acting characters over the years. She has one on Adventure Time that I really like. So I thought she was a neat addition. Also to see her in a bit of a bigger role.
Yeah.
That's I think going to carry over. I think she's kind of cool. So I enjoyed the show. Again, yeah, I totally see if it was anyone else in that lead role other than Eliza Coupe, I'd be more hesitant. I'll probably check out more, but it's not appointment TV for me.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to describe it. You know, if it's on, it's going to be better than a lot of those USA type comedies that I've seen, the half-hour ones, but it's not something I would necessarily go out of my way to watch. Mm-hmm. And in a way, you know, I would like to see Eliza Coupe in something a little more challenging, with more of an ensemble cast for her to play off of, but it was good to see her in action again, and she did make some of those scenes work.
Yeah. So I think that wraps this week's episode.
I think so.
Unless you had anything to add.
No, I am good. That was jam-packed.
For what we thought was going to be a light week, it certainly didn't turn out that way. So thanks again to all of you for tuning in. Be sure to keep checking back on the website for new episodes and new segments, and that's watchtvpov.com. And if you want to hit either of us up on Twitter, I'm the Televixen.
And I'm at Kit Couch Potato.
And we will have another one of these for you again next week.
Absolutely.
Take care.
Bye.
Night.